So I wanted to talk about the U.S. presidential election and Mitt Romney, but of course I don't want to talk about the usual things like did he really say binders full of women and that sort of stuff, but more about what it says about the state of American politics, or at least a part of the state of American politics in the current moment. Because if we flash backwards to, say, George W. Bush, he seemed to run clearly in his initial campaign before it became, war on terror in his re-election campaign on a platform of tax cuts and Jesus. And it's the Jesus part that seems to have faded into the background. And when not Mitt Romney, John McCain, there we go. When John McCain was nominated 4 years ago to run against Obama, there was still that typical white Christian American thing going on, and he had Sarah Palin as sort of the fallback to get the evangelical vote. Now, in 2012, we have Mitt Romney, who is a Mormon, as the Republican nominee, and religion seems to have become almost a non-issue in this campaign, whereas it was crucial to Republican victories, from Bush onwards. Well, only Bush was the only Republican victories in terms of presidential elections, but going back to Ronald Reagan, he was sort of the first Republican candidate to attempt to capture the evangelical vote and the Christian vote, and this sort of became a crucial plank in Republican strategy from then onwards to one degree or another, and Bush sort of took that to the extreme, but now it seems to have faded into near irrelevance. My basic theory in regards to who gets nominated for the party ticket, essentially, is who can sell their advertising message to the broadest demographic. I mean, you could basically compare the U.S. presidential election to an advertising campaign, essentially, and whose platform, whose ideas appeal to the broadest number of people. And we saw in the Republican primaries attempts by people like Rick Perry and Santorum to capture the evangelical vote, but it did not seem to be the decisive factor. So if we look back at the rhetoric of candidates like that, we see attempts to make gay marriage an issue, to make religion and Christianity, and as Rick Perry's put it, Obama's war on religion. All these things were attempted to win the Republican nomination, and they seem to have failed. So it leaves me to wonder, how relevant is religion for the Republican Party in the United States at this point in history, and is this sort of the final sign that it has waned and that it has become less and less relevant? Or, also depending on the outcome of the election, are we going to see a reemergence of it somehow, especially if Romney fails to win the presidency? And how is the party going to constitute itself in terms of getting its base? What is the Republican base now, really? We saw the Tea Party at the beginning of Obama's administration, and now that seems to have be yet another thing which doesn't seem to be all that relevant in this election. We have I don't really know. It seems that we've arrived at a point where Romney doesn't stand for anything he's a moderate. I guess that's what I'm getting at. Romney is a moderate, and it seems that only moderates can be elected in the 21st century United States politics. So I suppose that my question for the audience then would be, do you think that the Bush strategy of tax cuts and Jesus is now irrelevant in 2012, or at least not relevant enough to win you the presidential nomination? Or is that still somehow somewhere in the background? Because I would say that it seems that with debt And the other issues that have come up in the past 4 years of the presidency, it's that these past issues haven't gone away, that they've sort of been reframed. So now it's not about tax cuts, now it's about budget cuts and which side of each party stands on, how they're going to cut the budget and lower the deficit and that sort of thing. But at the same time, we don't see the Republicans taking it to the extreme of the Tea Party movement that we saw several years ago. We see this sort of wishy-washy, you know, we have a secret budget plan that's going to fix everything somehow 20 years after we're out of office, assuming that subsequent administrations follow with our plan and that sort of thing. The entire landscape just seems to have changed drastically in the past 4 years in a way that maybe I'm just not remembering correctly, but in Bush's 8 years in office, with the exception of the addition of the war on terror, we didn't really see too many huge changes in the way that just all the issues seem to be reframed, and things that won the Republican Party elections, you know, 12 years ago just don't seem to be at all relevant anymore. And is this really saying something about the state of religion in America, or just in regards to politics and presidential elections? Because I also understand that, you know, religion could be a much more decisive factor in, you know, Senate or congressional or local elections, depending on the district and where in the country it is. And is the Tea Party in this hiding in the background? I'm pretty sure there was a hilarious Onion video about that I'll try and find and post in the description. I'll also post in the description a documentary about the Republican entanglement with the religious right, although I'm pretty sure I've included that documentary in a video before. So, thoughts of the audience. Yeah, have a nice day.